Welcome to the bonus part 3 of my Reimagining Island 2 series. In parts 1 and 2, we went over how I would fix the missions and how that might affect the way the final results pan out. As a refresher, in first place we had Che Jongin, following her was Bang Jimin, then Yoon Ji-yoon in 3rd, Fuko took 4th place, and Coco got the last voted spot in 5th. Yoo Sarang then became the producer's pick after finishing 7th in the vote, and Jung Sebi joined her as a surprise producer's pick, resulting in a 7-member final lineup. This lineup is one I named ARCANA after tarot cards, and in this video we will be going over how I would plan their first year of activities. This was originally part of the script for part 2 before a lot of reworking, but I put so much work into this section I decided to make a bonus video. This is more in-depth than the original version, but I'm still hoping we get somewhere in the 10 to 15 minute mark. Any less I would feel like doesn't warrant a whole video, and more I would just be disappointed in my ability to talk about nothing for so long. Let's start by getting into positions. Think what you want, but not a single lineup from the show would be able to pull off the no positions thing. Half the show was spent splitting them into positions. To not have any for the final group would just feel like a waste of time and energy. They will have colors, a major arcana, and a concept associated with that card. Now, starting with Jongin, I would have her as a main vocal, lead dancer, sub-rapper. We're not doing the whole first equal center thing because that was never a promise, and they would never keep it if Jimin or Sebi weren't first. We don't want another shouting situation. So she gets 3 positions, showing off her well-rounded skill set. I would consider her a secondary main vocal, but she still tends to get the most lines considering her extra positions. As we have established, I am the representative things girly, so we're keeping the color concept from the show. Jongin gets to keep her light blue, but for new fan accessibility, we are renaming it into cloudy blue. Along with that, her representative symbol is clouds, and her major arcana is the magician, making her the concept of power. Moving on to Jimin, I think she's a good center, lead dancer, vocal, and sub-rapper. She's gonna have a lot of high impact parts, intros, outros, last line of the pre-chorus. That doesn't mean she's the only one getting those, but she's prioritized for the titles and promoted songs. I also feel like I should explain that my tier list of positions is main, lead, title, sub, non-title. Main means you're prioritized, get the most demanding, and generally the most parts in that position. Lead means you're the support system. You get a lot of parts, you're often ranked with the mains in that part distribution, but your role is to support the structure of that position. No prefix means you just do that part. No specific priority, but you'll get parts in that position. Sub means you're the lowest priority for parts in that position. You could go an entire era without a single part in that position. So this means Jimin is prioritized for high impact lines, is more of a vocalist than a rapper, and is a dance backbone. She also gets to keep her dark blue, but the official title of it is Midnight Blue. She also represents the High Priestess Tarot, which gives her the concept of intuition. Matching that, her symbol is eyes. Jiyoon has the most obvious position, and she only has one. She's the main vocal of the team. She's prioritized for any and all demanding vocal parts, particularly because it's her only position. While Jongin also has to handle difficult choreo and some rap sections, Jiyoon is all vocals. A so-called park and bark. If there's a moment in the choreo where everybody keeps moving, but her, you know something big vocally is coming. It doesn't have to be a crazy high note, could be a run, ad-libs, growl, anything really. I also, in my head, pair her and Jimin together a lot for lines, and I think that's a heavy influence from Drip. She's the first member whose eyeliner color I'm changing. Something about her feels very red to me, so I decided to give her apple red. It also balances out because otherwise 3 members would have yellow shades. For her tarot, we have the moon, which means lunar eclipses are going to have so much meaning. But with it, her concept is subconscious, which could also dreams. Her symbol matches her color because it's apples. That brings us to Fuko. She's the single most obvious leader candidate, oldest member, oldest contestant. From the get-go, she was tagged as a natural leader. It only makes sense. This also bridges into Japanese promo, so the group can be more consistent across markets. Otherwise, I have her as a lead vocalist. I would say lead dancer, but the group has enough of those. Fuko is the second member to have her color changed because 3 shades of blue is also too much. So I changed to a light purple called Wisteria. As the leader, it only made sense that her tarot would be the Empress, and with it the concept of strength. You may think, how are power and strength different? And my answer is, that's for the music video directors to figure out. Anyways, her symbol is then flowers. Coco is one of the reasons this group can't pull off the no positions thing because she is the clear and definitive main dancer and main rapper. I feel like a sub-vocal position would also be fine because she did okay with her vocal moments on the show. Nothing to write home about, but she can keep up well enough live. Coco gets to kinda keep her color from the show, but I shifted it more towards orange. So she has apricot as her color, the tarot is the sun, and so her concept is positivity, and her symbol is suns. Sarang, like I mentioned in my finale ranking, is a true all-rounder. She can assume main positions when needed, which makes her a perfect lead everything. Lead vocal, lead dancer, lead rapper. She can also have a visual role because I think she balances out the lineup's visuals nicely. It doesn't have to be an official one, but I think she should have one in spirit. She gets to actually keep her show color, we just updated the name. Her color is a yellow shade called Marigold, her tarot is the Lover, so she represents harmony, and her symbol is hearts. Finally, Sebi. Sebi is obviously the maknae, but she also gets a lead dancer, visual, vocal, and sub-rapper roles. With more time, I think she could grow into her vocal position more, but for their rookie years, she'll have a more prominent role on stage than in the studio. I do think she shares killing parts with Jimin, so she also gets impactful parts like intros and outros, but more on B-sides than title tracks. She keeps her show color in a sense, but we've updated her to Emerald. I wanted her to match Coco, so her tarot is the star and she represents faith. Thus, her symbol is also stars. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk concept. I was a bit torn. I want a dark fantasy, but I also want that retro vibe we got on the show, so I decided to go a middle way. Their first mini-album is going to be more focused on what show fans are expecting, leaning more into the sound and style of Fake It and I Will Always Love You. There's also a little bit of a hip-hop influence, but let's just get into the tracklist and concept for their first mini-album. ARCANA will make their debut with their first mini-album, The World, in October 2024. Now, ISNA debuted in late November 2024, but we're aiming to keep some of the hype from the show. They're going to KCON and previewing the first track on the mini-album as a teaser and to show hopeful fans that they're worth the wait, but let's talk about the concept for a second. The World is taken from the major arcana of the same name, but this will be their least conceptual release of their rookie years. There will be individual teasers highlighting their symbolism, like Jiun biting into an apple, Jungin parting clouds from above, Sarang shot through the heart by an arrow, etc. We're going for conceptual, but also simplistic. One of the teasers will feature a radio playing the title track very softly and grainy. As for the pre-debut track, Rocket Punches In My World, renamed Welcome parentheses My World, will serve as the first track of the mini and the track showcased at KCON. It would also be released digitally in September, kind of like Promise 9 did with Glass Shoes. This gives the first glimpse that they'll lean into this retro synth-heavy sound. Accompanying the digital release is a performance video, nothing too crazy but a bit more production than Studio June. Then the album's second and title track is Weekly's Room Room. It's more of the laid-back synth pop, allowing all the members to be showcased without pushing their vocal ranges too far. For the music video, I envision a very 70s vibe aesthetic, which I know is more disco than synth pop, but just let me cook. Walkmans and flared jeans, think April Oh My Mistake meets Eve in this photo shoot. But I would have an extended outro where they find some kind of hint towards the comeback and the fact it's not going to be the same concept. Following that is Stacey's One Thing, which is where we get more of the hip-hop influence and vibe. This is definitely a song that deserves a performance video, which is what I got with Stacey.
Waiting for only one thing,
I think this is also a stronger candidate for a promoted B-side than In My World, so it will be a promoted B-side. Next on the tracklist is Idol's 7 Days, renamed into Forever.
Gotta say Monday, Tuesday, or every day, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 days.
Not sure if I would keep it as a fully English track, but we'll see. Could be good if we intend on promoting more overseas, which could end up happening. Final original song is IVE's Payday, which has a Christmas flair to it, but I'm gonna rename it into Sweet Melody.
Sweetest melody,
I like having a wintry song, so fans can enjoy it near the end of the year. Definitely a special video for this one in December. Rounding off the track list are the bonus tracks I Will Always Love You and Fake It Arcana versions. Drip Arcana version is a CD-only bonus track. My main goal with this mini-album is to release a diverse yet cohesive discography. The first 3 songs play right into what worked on the show. The next 2 diversify the mood and vibe of the album, and finishing off with the most appropriate songs from the show without boxing them into anything. Keeping Drip as CD only is mostly because I just think it's the weakest song from the show. It should have a bridge. Anyways, promotions for Room Room should end around mid-November, just in time for them to start teasing the next era at the Mama Awards. Because of the late debut, they're not eligible for any awards, but this helps them build a strong case for 2025 Rookie of the Year. Their biggest competition that we can anticipate is SM's new girl group, which we now know to be Hearts to Hearts. As for the performance, they got a pretty long set, which is to be expected. I think we would change it up a bit. Their theme is no longer Who Dat Girl, but Winter's Coming, which will make sense, I promise. We'll have a shortened Welcome My World stage with an extended intro that leads into Room Room. One Thing then gets a full performance, and they end with an outro performance with Coco, Jimin, and Sebi. This outro is the real teaser for the next release, and the outro title is Frozen Flower. The trio will depict a flower dying in the winter with a traditional instrumental, think along the lines of Dreamcatcher's outro for their Japanese album, but with a few more traditional elements. I don't know where to fit this in, but I wanted to add a small detail about their logo. I like like versatile logos that keep a core element but can be updated for every era. That's why I chose to make their logo a circle with an eye inside. For the world, it just looks like an eye and may cause some confusion with Jimin's symbol. But Jimin is our center, so I feel like the overlap is allowed. It doesn't always have to be a circle, but we're starting basic and working our way up into more complex stuff, like all great logos. So now it's December and they dropped a special video for Sweet Melody. By now, I would hope they've managed to establish the group name somewhat, but we still have the end of year activities. Isna did a few end of year shows and decided to do a Christmas version of Isna, the song, so Sweet Melody exists to avoid just that. I would say in mid-January, right when the music shows are starting up again and close to the end of award season, that's when we drop the first teaser for their new era. We're going to show everything frozen, plants, buildings, even people. Then traditional strings start playing and we see Coco start dancing and the ice slowly melting. This is maybe a 20-second sequence out of a total minute-long teaser, but then, before we see much else, a film burning effect eats up the scene and we're left with the album title, Ostara Night, and a release date, March 20th. Their logo appears as a horizontal line that turns into an eye inside a circle that becomes the center of a flower. Now, one problem I find myself running into is the fact that Coco's dance style isn't really suited for this kind of concept. Sebe would honestly be the best choice, but all of the dancers in this group aren't really focused on this kind of concept, so I think we can get away with it. Moving on. As the basis for this album, I have the title track Idol's Mwah. It fully encompasses what I want this title track to sound like, and I love the use of Hwa as it can both mean fire and flower. It's like CLC's Me. Some of Cuba's best songs come from Hanja puns. I don't want to be too inspired by Hwa's concept though, so we're going to weave it into the vibe we've set for ARCANA. First of all, the main concept of their debut was based on the tarot card The World, so this one will be death. Contrary to popular belief, the card just generally represents end and change. It's not some omen just because of the name. I did my best to compile visual references. I made some Pinterest boards, and I was trying to dodge AI as best as I could, but if any slipped in, please feel free to comment and let me know. For this album, I chose 3 concepts. There's the winter concept, with red, white, and black as the central colors. I really like this veiled picture and the bird imagery. I want to include 2 moving teasers per concept, and for winter, that's these mirrors that are actually liquid and this standing in a circle one, but without the wings. Then the spring concept, with a heavy focus on flower imagery, especially spider lilies. I also added this inspiration picture of the CDs because I think it would be a nice concept to have painted flowers on the album CDs. The spider lilies I'm connecting to the red string of fate like these images, and I would have 2 moving teasers, one like this with the mirror and one like this with the fire. Finally, the phoenix concept builds off the flower imagery, but this time instead of simply being surrounded by flowers, they're becoming flowers. We're also leaning heavy on sun imagery. For the moving teasers, I like this one with the coming out of the mirror and, to continue the story, the cult walking into the fire. All of this culminates in the music video where I have a lot more references. We're starting with these darker themes. Frozen moonlight is what I call it in my head, but as the video progresses, we see the sun start to emerge. This is more for the performance sections, but for the story section, we're building on the red string connecting all of them and bringing them to the Ostara Night fire. I also love these sheer fabric ones, and I would use a reduced frame rate and lower shutter speed to mimic this, because doesn't it look like they're becoming the fire? I feel like that works so well narratively. I have a few tagged in my head as solo shots, but I couldn't be bothered to organize them specifically. So the narrative of this music video is all of them isolated in a frozen winter, then they perform a ritual to bring spring. The choreo scenes represent the fire growing more intense until it culminates in showing how they have become the first bloom of spring, both in the choreo and in the video. I would also group Coco, Sebi, and Jiyoon together in a few scenes as the sun, the star, and the moon. My goal was also to make it so it seems like you could film and edit the entire thing on a budget of less than 2,000 USD, but the rest of the money goes into actually making it look good. The first B-side on the album is Purple Kiss's Take, which we are renaming Moonlit Dance. Huge, big fan of the song. Genuinely think they should make an extended version just so I can listen to more of it at once. I'm choosing Moonlit Dance because the bridge is a repetition of the line I dance alone in the moonlight. Second B-side is Dreamcatcher's Silent Night. I hope you guys are getting a good sense for what this album sounds like and how different it is from the first one. This is where we're solidifying how conceptual the group is. The first mini album was about Island. This one is about ARCANA. Building off of that, we have Lovely's Dream in a Dream. The music musical box inspiration paired with the synths and swelling elements mixes together a bit of the previous album with their new direction. I also think of this album as telling a bit of a story. Mwah is about bringing out the sun, while the album's B-sides tell the story of the night itself. At this point, we've fallen asleep and keep falling further into a dream. The last song on the album is represented by Omar Girl's My Doll, renamed into Island of Dreams. It's a bit softer, kind of reminds me of Peter Pan vibes. It has this almost otherworldly quality, like you just woke up in an unfamiliar but nostalgic place, making it perfect for the end of the night. I originally had Billy's Sun Palace and High Key's Magical Dream here, but I decided the mini was too long. I originally had it matching the first mini and track list length, but 7 songs felt like too much, especially because the first mini is actually 5 songs plus 2 bonus tracks. Now, I would imagine they do the festival circuit, university festivals, then various music festivals domestically and overseas during the summer. Big question about if KCON in the US would even happen this year, given the vice president just said they would arrest and deport people visiting for FIFA, one of the biggest international events. But they would definitely go to KCON Japan. Now, there's a choice between a B-side music video or a special single we could release in mid-May, pushing it as a summary song. I think My Doll is good for that. Originally I had Magical Dream, but scrap. On June 21st, we're releasing a teaser, very simple, just to celebrate the summer solstice and letting people know a new album is on its way. I personally think it would be smart to use the opportunity they are presented with during summer festivals to go far north, most likely in Europe, and in very early June or late May, record something with the midnight sun. Like all the clocks strike 12, or there's a bell that strikes 12 times to signal it's midnight. Maybe have all the girls standing at the edge of a cliff and facing the sun. It's half-baked, it's just to create a connection between the last album being about spring and the sun, and now it's the longest day of the year in the northern hemisphere. Plus, pagans celebrate these days, so. After more festival appearances, and perhaps a small focus on individual promotions, the first official teaser for this comeback is released on August 22nd. It's called D-30 and is a logo motion. This time the logo turns the circle around the eye into 2 crescent moons. As we have established, I am not an artist, so imagination will take you a long way. The comeback would thus fall on September 22nd, the autumn equinox. The album teasers again feature 3 concepts. We're starting with a concept I think would get the strongest response, which is the warrior concept. Inspired by traditional Korean hanboks, similar to what Luna wore for PTT on Queendom, except most of the inspiration pictures are Chinese because Korea doesn't like the idea of women dressed like ancient warriors, I guess. It's a pretty dramatic concept, but I don't want it to be like most K-pop concept pictures that look heavily edited. I want it to be more reminiscent of traditional art or watercolors in the editing. Second concept is the fox concept. This is inspired by Japanese traditional kitsune masks. Seeing as foxes are very prominent in East Asian mythology, I think they fit well as a similar yet contrasting concept. I would also have it tie back to the spider lilies, so there's a common thread, pun intended. The final concept is the feast concept. Inspired by classic imagery of a long table filled with foods, this concept is the one most related to the title, which is Feast of Mabon, an autumn equinox celebration of harvest. But it has a very distinct traditional Korean flair with lots of red and Korean architecture. I also think light and disheveled hanboks, but not modernized hanboks, would be the move. I also have to add here, I do think when you release key concepts and base an album version on it, as we are doing, I hope that implication came through, you can't have it be the only concept. Maybe with a big group where photo book pages can fill up quickly, but in this case, I think you can't limit yourself. So there's a second, related but much simpler concept in all the photo books. Moving on, this album is led by title track Pity by Dreamcatcher. We're expanding on the traditional sound from Ostara Night by adding in rock elements and giving it a stronger foundation. This can establish them more as a performance group given how many strong performers are in the group. For the music video, I want to tell the story of an ancient battle. I don't know a better way to describe it. There's going to be a lunar eclipse in it, and at the end of the song, the sun rises. I'm sure some boy group has done it, but it's not something you see a lot of girl groups do. After that, we have Tribe's Witch, building on the name inspiration. I definitely think this is the song they would promote on music shows alongside or after the title track. Second B-side is Ujo Sono's Last Dance. Taking the music box elements from the last song and upgrading it to a waltz inspiration. After that is Billy's Everybody's Got a Secret, but we're just calling it The Secret. Everybody's got a secret. The song brings together both the classical vibes of Last Dance and the music box of Witch in an electronic bow. Final song on the mini is Pixie's Deja Vu. this is a Feast of Mabon take on Drip from the show. It's more intense than Drip, but it expands on the trap elements but doesn't sound out of place on this more traditional / classical track list. And that's the last Korean release I have planned for them. I would expect the PD-like title track to stand out in a good way. Currently their releases suffer from YG / Teddy burnout in sound, making them not too different from Meow and kind of mid in comparison to Blackpink's tiny discography. Basically, they're not bringing anything new to the table, which I know is ironic to say as someone who makes a whole series of videos talking about what someone else has done and changing it to my tastes. Anyways, my point is, going for something like PD and Hwa instead of whatever they're doing now would definitely take advantage of the attention they get by virtue of being an Mnet group and association with YG's style and seem very fresh and interesting in comparison. I'm not saying you can't like what they released so far, I'm just saying it's uninspired. All that to say, I think it would be enough positive attention to seek expansion into Japan. I would have them pre-release a Japanese version of PD and Hwa ahead of an official Japanese debut sometime around November, December. That's a good month and a half of promotions at least. I would then announce a showcase tour, 2 days in Seoul and then a tour in Japan. We would call it Hidden Things, which is a definition of ARCANA. Based on the responses to that, we could gauge if the tour should be expanded beyond Korea and Japan. Right before the first Japan date, I would have their official Japanese debut with IVE's Queen of Hearts.
I'm the queen of hearts.
It would be a mini album with PD, Hwa, and a Japanese version of The Secret, as well as original Japanese songs Tonari by Purple Kiss,
I will stay for you. It's nothing on you.
and Shampoo by Mamamoo.
Bubble, bubble, they're pumping, pumping. Can't take our drama.
There's not a lot of K-pop girl groups with original Japanese discographies that aren't pure bubblegum pop. Then I would have them continue the album theme so far by releasing 2 full-length albums, one for the summer solstice in June and one for the winter solstice in December, called Midsummer Dream and New Sun respectively. These 4 would then become known as the Solar Series, to be followed by the Lunar Series, or something. Midsummer Dream would have a fantastical fairy-like concept and sound like IVE's Ascendio.
Don't touch me.
New Sun, on the other hand, would be quite darker, sounding like GWSN's I Can't Breathe with visuals to match. I think we would also experiment with New Sun having solo/unit songs, Coco Sebi and Jimin in a unit, Sarang and Jungin having solos, Fuko and Jiyun in a unit, something like that. Anyways, I feel like I've spent enough time on this already. On to new projects. Oh, I just realized I forgot to make up a fandom name. Demi-Loon, alternative to Crescent, and they both reference an arc. Yeah, I'm gonna stick with that.